Hi, I'm Pearl. Now, in my last clip, I was talking about grief and what we might call a common or normal type of grief, simple type of grief. And even in its most simple form, grief is never really that simple. But the term complicated grief was something I read for the first time in a book by Brené Brown. Of course, she wrote some amazing books, still writing amazing books. And she wrote a book and she was talking about all these things like heartbreak and how to get through grief and all this kind of stuff. And then I got to the end and it said, this book is just for people who suffer from normal types of grief, not complicated grief. Because if you suffer from that, then you really need like a therapist or, somebody to talk to. And I thought, this should really have been at the front of the book. But it really made me think, and it made me understand a lot of like what I had been going through and what I've been dealing with and why I was finding it so challenging. And I mean, I've suffered from what you might call normal or simple grief as well when I've lost people. And I think what made that sort of more, say, normal or simple was, although it was very sudden, unexpected, people could have been quite young, where I was in that relationship, where we were in that relationship was quite in a really good place, And one of the things that can make grief so complicated is when we have a relationship with somebody that isn't straightforward, that isn't clear, healed, that it isn't in a good place when somebody dies. And it's very, very hard to figure that out. It's very, very hard to heal that, to get over that, to come to that place of acceptance. Because a part of that not wanting to accept somebody's death is really that we don't want to accept how we feel when there's no chance of what we might call healing that relationship. I'll talk a bit more about that in another video because it's quite a complex. But the reason I wanted to share this and talk about this is because so often what happens, and this is why I really talk about grief, is when we are doing what we love, when we are experiencing true joy, true authenticity, that's when all of our feelings come up. So if we have anything unhealed, like grief or complicated grief, that's when it comes up. So we need to know a little bit about that. I usually use this in my Fear of Success instructor training, because I think as a Fear of Success instructor, you need to know this stuff. It's really, really important. It's a little bit like first aid. We need to know about these common things that can happen. But obviously it's really important for everybody in life because this affects everybody. And another time I experienced complicated grief was really about my brother when he became disabled. And really sort of diving into that and feeling those feelings and allowing that to all come up was incredibly painful. And for me, that all came up really, a lot of it came up when I was doing Zumba, when I was teaching Zumba, and also when I went to Zumba convention. And I remember when I went to Zumba convention and I kept feeling like physically ill, feeling really ill, being sick in the morning, all this kind of stuff. And I was so scared, and I thought, it's like I'm allergic to Zumba. It's like I'm allergic to this thing that I love because it keeps making me feel so awful. And I was at convention, and it was the very first morning, and I felt like this, and I thought, I've just got to get out into the pool, get out into the fresh air. And I went down and I got in the pool, and I realised that what I was really feeling and what I was scared of feeling was grief. That it was coming up for me, and I was scared of those emotions. And I made a decision on that day that I was going to take care of myself, that I was going to do whatever it required, And obviously when you're at convention, you want to go to all the sessions and enjoy everything. And I thought, I'm just going to take what I need. I'm going to do what's right for me. If I have to take a break, if I have to go to the bathroom to have a good cry, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm so pleased to say that every session I went into was so healing, was so comforting, and it was exactly what I needed in that moment to help me to start to process that complicated grief, that all the pain of feeling the feelings that I had repressed for so long, and really to get to that position of acceptance. So I know it's not easy, and I know that for some people it's much more complicated, you know, because either what the grief that we're feeling grief about something that is complicated, like somebody becoming disabled, or it might be about, you know, anything that we've experienced in life. You know, so that grief can be very complicated, and also it can be complicated because we've lost somebody where we had a relationship that was so confusing and so mixed up. I'm going to do another video about that as well, but I really hope this helps in some way, because, you know, when we go through stuff like this, sometimes it makes us feel like we're crazy. It makes us feel like there's something wrong with us. It makes us feel like we're allergic to the stuff that we love, but we're not. We're okay. We're perfect. We're just healing.